Hey there, welcome to the REI Conversion Podcast, where each episode we discuss strategies and digital tools to help you launch, automate, and scale your real estate investing business. Learn how to run your investing business remotely, find out ways to automate your business to better utilize your time, and learn what other successful investors are implementing so you can get to the next step closer to your investing goals. And I'm your host and founder of REI Conversion, Jesse Kwong. Hey, how's it going? It's Jesse here of the REI Conversion Podcast. This is the final episodes of 2021. What I'm going to be doing in these episodes, I'm saying episodes because there's going to be two, we're going to be breaking this into two parts, is that I'm inviting 21 different land investors that are either still new or very experienced or somewhere in between to share their biggest mistakes and lessons when it comes to land investing of 2021. I had to communicate with all of our guests, whether it was through phone calls or Zoom calls, so there's going to be a mix of different ways that we're getting on these calls with all these guests here. We're going to break this into two episodes. Hopefully we'll have half of them in the first one and half of them on the second one. I'm sure you're going to get tons and tons of value out of this. I loved it very much. I very much enjoyed it, and I'm sure you will as well. As usual, this show is brought to you by REI Conversion. If you are looking to streamline, to automate, and to centralize your land investing business, because there's just so many moving parts to land investing, you want to check out REI Pebble. Go ahead and book a free demo with me. Just head over to reiconversion.com/pebble. In fact, I've got a great new feature that I'd love to share with you just before this show right here. So let's look on my screen right now. All right, so one of our latest features we just launched is our Pebble lead forms. You now have the ability to build your forms out inside of Pebble, and you can embed them anywhere you'd like. And this is really powerful because it is now a much more frictionless process for your sellers to submit their properties to you. Now, this is also great if you're using a call answering service like Pat Live or whatever it is, because you can also build out forms just for those to help you save time and save money so you don't spend too many minutes on calls and that your calling agency can immediately pull up that property right in front of them. All right, so looking at our screen right here, we've got the REI Land Leads website. This is our land buying website, and we've got the Pebble lead form here embedded on the right side. You can see here asking for the full name, phone number, and email address. The main goal here, again, is to increase the conversion rate. We want to ask as few questions as possible. So we're making this super frictionless because all your seller needs to do is just simply enter in this information, and I'll go ahead and enter that right now. Cool. Okay, so their information is entered now. We've put in their name, their first name, their phone number, and their email. We'll go ahead and hit the Get Your Cash offer. Before, it used to send you to a second form, but what we do now is actually present the property right in front of the seller. So you can see here it says, great, is this your property? We spell out the county, the acreage, the parcel numbers. We even show them the map of their property. It doesn't get any more personalized than this. These are the things that are going to help with your conversion rate. So if you're interested in a lot of these types of features that help you streamline, that help you increase conversion rate, to really help you continue to optimize on your land investing business and the processes, head over to reiconversion.com/pebble and book a free demo with me today. All right, hang tight and enjoy this episode. Hey, how's it going? I've got Seth here. Seth, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, Jesse?
Good. So on this episode, I am asking 21 different land investors what their lesson is, or what their biggest lesson or mistake is of 2021. If you can share that with our listeners today.
Yeah. So for me, I feel like I've always been sort of bad at this, but this has hit me a lot this year more than in prior years, is underestimating how long a thing will take to get done. And this, I think that I've been plagued by this a little bit more this year for a couple of reasons. First of all, COVID is it's kind of taken its toll on the world, and things are either like late or I don't know. There's just lots of reasons why things are going slower than they normally would. But I've also been working on a development project, the first one I've ever done, where I'm actually trying to build something on the land that I buy. And that, understandably is a lot more complicated than just flipping a property and being done with it. There's lots of other parties involved. Everybody has to do different things and jobs and tasks. And man, it's just, and that kind of thing is slow anyway, but it's even slower than normal because of COVID. So I think like under normal circumstances, it's usually smart to think of how long something how long you think something's going to take and just double it. But now I'm learning it's almost like I should triple it. Like just really plan on it going slow. And luckily I haven't been in like a huge time crunch on a lot of these things sometimes, but no, it's just something that's it's frustrating. And I don't know. I think I just need to do a better job of estimating how long things take.
Yeah, sometimes setting our expectations can be tough. I totally get what you mean by doubling then tripling. You're not the only one who's gone through that. Seth, I really appreciate you sharing that with us on this episode here.
Hey, Jesse.
Hey, Mike, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
What would you say was your biggest lesson of 2021, whether it's a mistake that you made or just a lesson that you learned in general?
Yeah, Jesse, the lesson that I learned where I go since I've been doing this since 2014 is to space out my mailings. Swamped with responses, I would get overloaded in inventory, then I would do nothing but sell, and then suddenly I'd realize I was out of inventory and I'd scramble to do a huge mailing. Where this became extremely painful for me this year is that I was in that situation again where I had to do a mailing because I was panicking because I was out of inventory, and I did a huge 8,900 piece blind offer campaign. The problem being, when I did it, somehow when I submitted it to the mailing company, the offer sheet got scrambled. So every single offer of that 8,900 was out of whack. They were all wrong.
How many mailing was that in total?
8,900.
Oh, boy. So, and you were sort of cutting off a little bit here and there, but what I caught was the fact that steadying out your mailing, sort of having and sticking to a schedule so you get, keep your funnel filled and do mailing on a regular.
Absolutely. And now, due to that one painful mistake, which actually, lucky for me, worked out okay because I managed to make it work. I renegotiated some. I got some that were well below what I ever would have had the guts to offer somebody, and they got accepted. So it all ended up okay.
Awesome. Mike, I appreciate you. I think you're sort of cutting in and out here, but I think we caught the most of it. We really appreciate you sort of sharing your experience. And I remember you came onto our podcast, and this was something we sort of had a chat about. And it is one of those things that continue to haunt a lot of people, like, continue to steady out your mailing. And that's one of the key things that we do at our REI Pebble is, we continue to regulate that mailing. And it happens when you sort of send out such a giant mailing list. This happens time after time when a pricing gets messed up and it gets scrambled. So I'm glad you got that worked out.
Hello, this is Josiah.
Hey, Josiah, it's Jesse here.
Yeah, I'd say my biggest lesson is back to the basics. It's just consistency. If you don't take the actions every day, every week, and follow the plan, then it'll get away from you. So that's, I think, the results. It's the basic thing everybody tells you when you're getting started is you got to be consistent. And they're not lying.
So are you talking in consistency to getting your mailing out, following up with leads, prepping things? What in specific would you say in consistency to?
Yeah, I think they'll avoid the shiny object syndrome and make sure that you're blocking your time and handling all that stuff, whether it be sending the mail, following up with your buyer and seller leads. It doesn't take a lot of time until you put it off and then it becomes a big pile.
I totally agree, Josiah. Hey, Paul, how you doing?
Doing good.
Paul, is there a lesson or a mistake that you can share with our listeners that you kind of went through in 2021 that others can sort of benefit from?
Yeah, actually, I got a couple, but the first one is kind of more for the land investor who still works their 9-to-5 job and is slowly growing their land business to take over that job at some point. When you're not doing it full time, which is exactly what I'm doing. I'm doing it part time. Don't get distracted and chase shiny objects. Set your priorities for the week and follow them out. It's really way too easy when you have life and everything else getting in the way. I had to restart about halfway through the year and redo a whole bunch of stuff because I kind of let things go on autopilot, didn't pay enough attention here and there, and didn't really follow the recipe. It's a pretty easy recipe to do the land investing. So if you just follow that recipe and stay with it, things will grow organically and naturally. And then once you're ready to commit more time to it, that is when you can then scale and move on.
Love it. Love it. So don't get distracted. Stay focused. And you mentioned you had a second one, Paul. Was that sort of both of them sort of combined in one there?
Well, that was just kind of still me being new at this game. It's a funding thing. I had the opportunity to buy about 160 acres of various sized properties from one seller. And instead of trying to find funding from an outside source, I kind of tried to negotiate the offer down to a more manageable purchase price where I thought I could handle it on my own with my own funding. And they found a buyer who was willing to pay the actual market price. So when land comes up in the area that you're familiar with working and you can sell, just get the funding, get the deal done as soon as you can, get it under contract so that you don't lose out. Now, that was my second time. So you'd think I'd have learned my lesson the first time, but I was brand new the first time it happened. This time it's about a year and a half in, and you'd think I would have learned the lesson, but nope, I didn't, and lost out on 160 acres, about 15 or 20 properties, all in my area. Would have set me up for at least half a year worth of sales, and I missed out. So lesson learned, third time's a charm, apparently, in my book.
Hello.
Hey, Ed, it's Jesse here.
Hey, what's going on, Jesse? As a solopreneur, you're out there by yourself, and if a question comes up, it's hard to find somebody to answer it. So I found that joining groups, whether it's a Slack group or a Discord group, or maybe like a small mastermind that meets once a week or twice a month or whatever, or even like a larger mastermind where you can share ideas and bounce questions off of people, and just going in there and reading a lot of that stuff, I've learned a lot of information. So I think that's a good idea for all new, especially for new land investors, but really any land investor.
Yeah, no, I love that. So let me ask you this. What sort of a format works for you? Is it sort of like you guys actually have a formal meeting, or like is it like Discord? You guys kind of just leave each other messages, and what do you find works?
Yeah, so I'm like in your group, the Slack group that you've got, and I'm in a Land Academy Discord group, and so it's just people in there dropping messages and stuff and asking for different questions, which is pretty neat. If you have a question, you can drop a question in there, and somebody will probably answer it, and which is good because a lot of time if you're working by yourself and you don't have any friends in this business that you can pick up and call, it's a good way to get somebody to bounce something off of somebody else. I'm also in a couple of like masterminds where we actually meet on a Zoom call. One of them we do every other week, and then I've got a smaller one with two guys that we do once a week. But yeah, it just gives you an opportunity to talk to others in the business, and if you want to get like somebody to look over a deal that you're thinking about doing, or if you have a question on how to do this or that, and there's somebody out there that's more than likely done it, and so you can usually throw it out there and somebody will answer your question or something. So I found that hugely beneficial, and that's definitely one of the lessons that I probably should have gotten in earlier to those things that I did.
Awesome. I've got Max and Ryan, our good friends over from price.com.
I can definitely tell you our biggest, oversight that I would say. So one of the properties we bought had a property in the middle of it that we weren't purchasing it. And so we went through our due diligence. It was a good purchase price, as if it was the whole thing. We got a real estate agent kind of to give us a market valuation on top of that, and everything looked good. And so we kind of just pushed over the fact that there was still that property in the middle and kind of just said, we may be able to purchase it if everything falls through, and we can just go through that standpoint or that process when we get to it. And so we went through and purchased it. We went through an auction process this time, and we bought it for 147 or so, 142, and then the real estate agent thought it was going to sell for like 400,000. And then the auction came through and ended up going to like 170,000. And so we kind of hit the pause button there. And of course, everyone said they had a problem with the property in the middle, and the person in the middle didn't want to sell at a reasonable price. And so we just let it go. Fortunately enough, again, we bought it at a low enough price where we broke even, or we'll make a little bit of money on it actually. But it was definitely something that moving forward, if there's any property in the middle, we are probably just going to push that one off to the side and go on to better deals.
I love that. I love that. Awesome. Ryan, how about you? 2021 biggest mistake or lesson?
That's probably the biggest mistake that one of Max has said. So I'd say one of the biggest lessons is being patient. I think comparing something like price to something like our land investing business, where price is constantly moving, we're constantly making updates and being able to change things on the fly. Whereas on the land investing side, there was a lot of times where we had a closing date that was pushed out, or the seller backed out, and so we had to start the process over. We're waiting for a title claim to come through, and then that was like multiple weeks in the making. And you really have to be accepting of the fact that depending on the time of year too, right? Like right now we're in the holiday season, so things aren't open that as frequently, and being able to understand that it's a long process, and being able to time that out, especially with, when you're managing your finances. Max might tell you, we were juggling funds at one point, trying to make sure that one property closed on a certain date so that we could actually, wire the funds the next day for the next purchase, and just juggling all of that has been definitely a good lesson learned this year.
Hey, Alex, it's Jesse here from REA Conversion.
Hey, Jesse.
Can you share with us one of your biggest lesson or mistake of 2021 that others can benefit from?
I have to say, do your proper due diligence and make sure you investigate the market price of the area and be prepared for when you're getting ready to send out your letters and whatnot for your campaigns. Because if you choose an area that has a lot of high value properties, you're going to have a really hard time getting sales agreements if you don't have cash to buy them. And I found out very quickly moving into the Phoenix market that most of the properties are well over $300,000 or more, and I wasn't getting any signed contracts back at all. And I was making well over 80% offers. Nobody said yes. So then we don't have, plus I didn't have access to any capital group. And this was before I met Travis and his group. And so it was just, having no money at the beginning is really tough, and trying to do a double close or find cash buyers to somebody who has $300,000 or more to spend it's really hard to do that. And I've used everything at my disposal between LandWatch and Facebook, Craigslist, all that, but a lot of people just wasted my time.
Got you. I appreciate that, Alex, and that's wonderful that you've met some other funders who've also gotten involved. I'm assuming, is that right?
Yes.
Hey, Jesse.
Hey, Travis, how you doing?
Easy by far. What jumps out or stands out to me is building our team and hiring. We delayed that, too long. Absolutely do that, much sooner. Start building out our team and hiring. I think we kind of fell into that trap of, you hear, be slow to hire or hire slow. And I think everything I've read and heard, I disagree with with some of that. We've certainly expanded so fast that I think in hindsight, we should have started hiring 6 months ago and not now. And then those individuals would be trained up, they'd have 6 months of experience by now.
So if somebody were to hire out, what would you say is the first easiest step to hiring somebody? Like if somebody knows nothing about hiring somebody, what should that first step be for them?
Well, I think so. Even if when you get ready to hire, that's when it kind of, a spotlight gets shined on what you haven't done right or how you haven't positioned yourself ready to hire, So some of the practices I think that precede that are good for your own business anyway. I think like you can't train somebody if you haven't captured processes, right? So capturing your own processes ahead of time is good for you anyway. But when you're ready to hire, you're going to need to train up that individual, and there's a good chance, they're going to be remote employees. So you're going to wish you had, screencast or recorded those processes ahead of time. And then again, even writing the job rec or job description, for the role you're hiring, if you, within your own business, kind of defined roles or defined, different segments of the business, acquisitions, dispositions, or operations, if you kind of defined those tasks and who does those currently, even if it's just you doing everything. I think writing those out, it helps you, because then when you write that job posting, you kind of have that, you already know what's taking up most of your time and what you need to hire for. And then you have those processes captured to share or help you train that individual.
I love it. Travis, thank you very much. You heard it. Hiring earlier, building out your SOPs, or what people, a fancy word for procedures, standard procedures, right? Recording it and getting that all organized. I love it. Hey, Robert, it's Jesse here from REI Conversion. What was your biggest lesson in 2021 in regards to land?
Sure, and I think there's two things that are really interrelated. And one is kind of what I call lack of creativity, and where that's manifested is on behalf of buyers, and the other interrelated one is the curse of knowledge, and that's a bias that we as sellers commonly have. Those come together to create a situation where I think we as sellers take for granted the information we know about land and the information we know about a specific property, and then a lot of buyers casually, viewing, skimming things. And when you bring those two together, there's a gap. And so I think you have to fill that gap as a seller. And you really have to over-describe things, give them the information multiple ways. We today spend a lot of time trying to communicate what's in the text of our listings, for example, in the photos as well. And so we try to really double up, and it's triple up on information, because we know the buyers aren't necessarily going to have the background to understand it, or they're going to skim it. And so we really try to present the information multiple ways.
I love that. Robert, thanks for being so specific about that. And really sort of, if I were to summarize that, it's really sort of going sort of beyond our understanding of land, and really sort of, again, over describing the way the property is, or when you're doing remarketing or whatever it is, being as specific and descriptive as possible. Is that correct?
Yeah, it is. And I'll give you one really simple, example that you see all the time, and you see this all the time, honestly, with realtors listings. You'll see an aerial, and you won't have property line borders. So where the heck's the property? I see this pretty aerial, but where's the property? And so you got to show them the property and really spell things out, because the buyers just don't have the knowledge you have. But you got to spell it out for them.
Robert, I love that. Thank you very much for sharing that with us on the show here. I appreciate your time, and wishing you the best of luck for 2022.
Awesome. Thanks, you too, Jesse. Appreciate it.
Before you stop this podcast or head to the next episode, I want to personally thank you for listening to this episode of the REI Conversion Podcast. If you found this helpful, we'd greatly appreciate an awesome review and rating on whichever platform you're listening to this on. And if you have 2 minutes and wanted to step it up even more and help others, feel free to share this in other Facebook groups or pages or any communities, giving others a heads up of the REI Conversion Podcast or this specific episode that may help them on their investing journey. Once again, thanks very much for listening, and catch you on our next episode.